Drag racing isn't as dangerous as it looks. In fact, in the 10 years that the sport has been popular in this country, there hasn't yet been a fatal accident. The idea of the sport is to cover the standing quarter of a mile in the shortest possible time. And to do this, the cars are virtually huge engines mounted on very light chassis with vast wheels to absorb the power. The engines themselves don't have radiators. Instead, they're brought up to an optimum temperature by burning out. And of course, the cars race in pairs, and so there's a little bit of gamesmanship when two cars are on the line. Inclined to turn to your opponent and try and space things out so that his engine gets too hot before he gets the off. His engine may even blow up before the car moves away. Of course, the most exciting moment for both the audience and spectators who are watching and the dragster himself is when he's standing there on the line waiting for the green.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 4th Annual International Drag Races at Santa Pod Raceway, the home of European drag racing.
Drag racing is the fastest growing motorsport in Europe. It is simply a race between two super powerful machines over the standing start quarter mile.
Tremendous field of international competitors here from America, from Sweden, from Holland, from South Africa, and all the resident American United States Air Force drivers, plus all the great United Kingdom drag racing stars. Organized by the British Drag Racing and Hot Rod Association.
After each meeting, these big 1,500 brake horsepower engines have to be completely stripped down and checked out.
That is choice. That's why she's spitting back, mate. Yeah.
This is last year's champion, Dennis Priddle, climbing into his dragster, getting ready to fire up. There are no starter motors on these engines because that's just extra weight and bad news for a drag racer. So they're either pushed or, as here, started on the rollers. So the exhaust caps have now been removed and they're ready to fire the machine up.
Really something.
The big Chrysler bursts into life. And these are the last checks before the car is ready for racing.
Murphy in the funny car. Murphy was the third driver of all time and the first woman to be issued a National Hot Rod Association license to drive a rocket car in early 1972.
Paula Murphy about to warm up her rear tyres with a burnout. Ready for her qualifying run.
What am I doing here? Well, we came over from the United States to race at Santa Pod, and next weekend we're at the HMS Daedalus down near Portsmouth. And I have a funny car, Plymouth Duster replica. And we run a Chrysler 488 cubic inch Chrysler Hemi engine in the car, on fuel, supercharged, and injected. Well, I've been racing totally 15 years, and I first started in sports cars and have driven and owned quite a few British cars. And in 1965, I started drag racing.
What do you reckon your chances are?
I haven't raced Don Schumacher as yet. This meeting I have in the States, and unfortunately for me, he usually wins.
In the second funny car here at Santa Pod Raceway, the hottest funny car driver from America in Stardust, the supercharged and injected funny car, Don Schumacher.
Don Schumacher fires up for his burnout and qualifying run.
All I can say is
We've each lost to each other many a time, because when you race the same person all of the time, you can't beat them all of the time. These things are too unreliable. You can break too many things all the time, so it's hard to tell what'll happen. If we can get the cylinders all to run the same, get the car to leave the starting line, it should run about 215. But the shutoff area will probably break the car apart. It's a little bit rough down there, but it should be okay.
The first run I made yesterday, at the top end of the track there's quite a bad bump. And I hit that bump pretty hard and poked a hole in the oil pan. And so we had to have that welded and repaired. So today I took it a little easier than I did yesterday.
But drag racing is not all competition cars. This is the Wheelie Stingray. Driven by Roy Phelps, this car is especially designed to cover the standing start quarter mile on its rear wheels only, and has a perspex floor so that Roy can see where it's going. But the qualifying period has come to an end, and we're nearly ready for competition, and that means racing.
Dragster, we have one of the most famous drag racers in the world, in the rear engine rubber liner, Tony Nancy.
So Tony Nancy burns the hide. Tony Nancy gets his dragster ready to race his competitor Mike Hutchison in Hound Dog. The cars are staged exactly side by side. Notice the parachutes to assist the braking of these powerful machines. But Tony Nancy has a query on the English Christmas tree.
I backed out of the light?
Yeah.
Well, if I did that, I got a red light then.
No. It's slightly different here. This new timing equipment will be all the same as the American one. But this one we got at the moment is not.
Yeah.
And if you back out, all you do is you get an amber light comes back on. You don't in fact get a red light.
But nothing came on.
I don't know, I wasn't down there, so I don't know.
Everything went fine. I just had pre-stage, stage, and the next thing I saw was green, I left. That's it.
These cars have a very basic
Regular
cooling
tap
system.
Water, you know, the regular tap, but
Finally.
the engine gets very hot when we run it, and we let the water stay in there as long as possible to absorb all the heat. And then once we dump the water or drain it, then all the heat goes with it, we hope, and then we put fresh water in that brings the temperature down. Because we run just the water that's in the engine, in the block. We don't have a radiator or anything else. I just got back from Japan and ran the car there at 238 miles an hour. And I run that 236, 238 in the States all the time. And the car is running a lot, or as good as it normally does. And I don't really understand why the speeds and ETs are down. But like I say, I don't know anything about their starting system or their timing system or how it works, you know.
Drag racing is also motorbikes.
Coming to the line now with his big 1700cc Harley Davidson, it's Danny Johnson.
Danny Johnson from America racing Jim Brown from Great Britain. And Danny Johnson blows his machine all over the strip.
Danny Johnson there, absolute first favourite, unbelievable. Well, folks, Danny Johnson's got another bike. We're just hoping to get this one out and come back for this second match. It just shows what drag racing is all about, and we'll say it again.
And now one of the British Pro Fuel drag racers.
My name is Roland Pratt. I'm a member of the Hillbillies, and we've been quite successful in the past 5 years in drag racing. It's our first year with a funny car, with a dragster. Last year we had the funny car, which quite a lot of people knew about, I'm sure. That's the first year we run a blown engine. Unfortunately, we come to a drastic end on the fifth
So
year.
there we are, Danny Johnson. Accident on the strip. Hold on those cars.
It says a lot for the inbuilt safety of these machines that Roland got out of this accident with just bad bruises.
I'm afraid it's from the start for chocolate builders and riders. I think
Most of the public were very sympathetic, donated up to £1,000 for us in collection. while I was in hospital, in Bedford Hospital. We've done a 201 mile an hour run yesterday with a 7.4 second run, which sound very good and very strong. We've done a couple of modifications after today's mishap with a blower belt, so I hope we'll try and get for 6 second run today. 6.9 at least with a 200 plus, and blow Tony Nancy in if the chance is possible.
There is Tony Nancy. So now we have in the rear-engined dragster the new boy to the drag racing scene, running in Pro Tour very strongly now from the West Country, Roland Pratt.
So Pratt takes on Nancy. Nancy's car is pushed back as there is no reverse gear on these machines. Both burnouts completed, the cars get ready for this first semi-final. With engines developing up to 1500 brake horsepower, it is most important that the big rear tyres called drag slicks are sticky and grippy. Neither competitor wishes to stage first. A bit of psychology creeping into drag racing here, with both drivers trying to break the nerve and the engine of his competitor. But just look what can happen when it goes too far.
Now ready to get staged, and they're just about staged, ready to run, but oh, we've got a bit of confusion on the start line now. The start line marshal Stuart Bradley there is waving Roland off, but he's through the red light as he goes across. Well, this could be dramatic. A little bit of a commotion out there on the start line.
So Roland Pratt goes through on his own, but back at the start line, there's real drama. An explosion from Nancy's engine.
I don't know what's happened there. A red light there for showing at the bottom of the Christmas tree for both cars. So this is really tremendous drama here on the start line.
So Nancy is pushed back to the pits, and there the temperature really rises.
We either come here to race, or we come here to sit and stroke ourselves. If both ambers are lit, am I in the stage? Both ambers were lit on both cars. I know. I was in the car looking at them. What happened then? You tell me what happened.
Roland Pratt arrives.
You know, we're going to have to do something. Look, either we've got to kick that asshole out of the tower who pushes the button.
We wanted 3 ambers and a green.
I don't care how many ambers, greens, or what. That has no deal. That doesn't make any difference. Yeah. Both your staging lights were lit and both mine were lit. Yeah. And there was no tree came on except for 2 reds.
My motor was boiling. I couldn't stick there no longer.
Well, what do you think mine was doing?
Got him. No shoot. Oh, we got ET did we turn? That's the important thing.
Tempers now cooling, both competitors get back to check out their machines.
Second American been put down. What do you think of that then? Doc?
Drag racing originated in the States in Santa Ana, California. And here the local police chief was so fed up with seeing young people racing around the town that he opened up a local airstrip. And there people could go along with their cars and burn up their tyres in enthusiasm without getting fined. Well, in the last 10 years, a lot of people in this country have taken up the sport. And one of the biggest centres of enthusiasts is in fact Santa Pod in East Anglia. And sometimes on a race day, there can be as many as 15,000 people coming to watch the excitement.
Back to the other semi-final.
UK contingent in Pro Tour dragster, Clive Skelton.
This run could see maybe the first 220-mile-an-hour run in the country. This is what we're after. We ran 2:17 2 weeks ago, and I was at Silverstone, and there's an 8-foot climb on the track, so we're looking for big things.
Now we've got some late news on that race between Tony Nancy and Roland Pratt. After a discussion with the RAC, it now seems that Roland Pratt is going to be awarded that race. This is really hard luck for Tony because he hasn't really understood the light system. They're not used to running these lights in America, remember? And really...
Does it worry you driving it?
No, of course it doesn't.
Mr. 6, Dennis Peddle, the present International Pro Tour champion.
So Clive Skelton, the quickest qualifier, takes on Dennis Priddle, last year's champion. And Dennis Priddle goes through for a second year in under 7 seconds and a terminal speed of over 200 miles an hour.
Now we have coming to the line again with his second machine, another 1700cc Harley Davidson. Been running low 9s with these machines. Hopes to have an 8 before the International Series is over.
So Danny Johnson with his second machine gets another chance against racer Jim Brown.
What happened? And drama again. That's really bad luck for Danny Johnson.
This time the tremendous power of the machine breaks the chain. Drag racing covers a large variety of machines. This is shooting edge shavers with a funny car, still without a body. But he's in trouble. And he automatically disqualifies himself by crossing the centre line and impeding his competitor.
I'm not sure. The tires broke loose halfway up. I couldn't hold it. Yeah, I tried.
An example of what you can do with a wholly British engine setup is Johnny Whitmore's Dragonfly, here attempting to break the class terminal speed record. And he does it.
Good words on the loudspeaker, kid.
About 9.8 seconds, 9.8 seconds, up to 150, 1 mile an hour.
And now the race between the two American funny cars, Don the Shoe Shoemaker and Miss Paula Murphy. And Don Shoemaker takes it at over 200 miles an hour and just over 7 seconds. But even at that, things could have been just a little bit better.
Didn't go too crooked though. Huh? Didn't go crooked.
Oh, she moved over a little bit.
That's because got one tire loose a little bit.
Ray Hoare in the final of Top Dragster. His competitor broke, but he still must cover the distance to win.
A well-deserved win with the rear-engined injected Chevrolet Dragster, the winner of Top Dragster, Ray Hoare.
Hey? Oh, that was a good one.
What speed do you reckon you got?
I don't know, that was fast.
159.
Oh, was it?
10.11.
Well, it was.
Clutch.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Well, this can be a pretty expensive sport. The engine alone can cost £3,500, and on top of that you've got wheels, tyres, tubes and so on. You can add another 350. Some cars can reach just under 200 miles an hour in a mere 7.5 seconds. The steering is interesting because it can only go 15 degrees either side of a straight line in front of the car, and the front wheels have to be held down, sometimes with as much as 30 pounds of lead, which stops that tremendous surge of power on the start from lifting the front of the car quite literally up into the air. There's a fair amount of stress on the car. Some engines are so tuned that they'll only last 3.5 minutes at full power. In fact, you're lucky if you can get a car to last a full season without blowing up.
And now the big one, the final of Pro Fuel Dragster. Roland Pratt in his first year with a Pro Fuel Dragster against last year's champion and quickest man in Europe, Dennis Priddle. And Dennis Priddle wins for a second year. But it's bad luck again for Roland Pratt, as this time his engine fails on the line.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the Pro Dragster is Mr. 6, Dennis Priddle. The international
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Do you know what speed you were doing?
I don't know offhand. I wouldn't think I was going as fast at terminal speed that time as I had the run before. There was a little problem with the engine, but I just kept my foot in it as long as I knew I'd won, and just let out to try and save as many parts as I can.
Do you remember what happened at the start?
There was a bit of a psych job going on as who was going to stage before the other person, each trying to get their engine. You know, you're trying to boil the engine into the opposition, you know. And I just went into pre-stage, and I was willing to wait there all day. You know? I was going to wait there until the fuel ran out.
And now we have then, for you spectators here, the farewell of Don Shoemaker with the fantastic Plymouth funny car out on the line, ready for his speciality. Well, what a great way to end the drag race meeting, an international meeting, with that fantastic flame out from the hottest funny car driver in the world. And that is no pun intended there. If you enjoyed it, come and see us again and join in the fun of drag racing.